بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. الحمد لله حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيده، وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا كريم. So Alhamdulillah, we're able to get you guys in this intensive boot camp of ours, the Salik Retreat boot camp. You guys thought you're going to get it easy, and now you have, now we have you sleeping 3 hours a night, and the rest of the time memorizing stuff and reading stuff and making tawafs where you have to save old man falling. Alhamdulillah. By the way, did you guys finish memorizing? Did you memorize for the day? No, you didn't. Did you memorize for the day?
I memorized
the day's still young.
Yes.
The day's still young. طيب. Alhamdulillah. So, we were, last time we sat down, yesterday, walillahi alhamd, we did, what was the last thing we did?
We did
We did the page that you guys were missing, number 19.
Number 19, the conditions of wudoo.
The conditions of wudu.
Yes.
So, today inshallah ta'ala we'll take, after the author, he mentioned the fara'id, the obligatory actions in wudu. Many mentioned the obligatory actions in ghusl. He then went on to mention the conditions of wudu, and we said these are conditions of wudu and ghusl alike. Though the author said wudu, these are also the conditions of ghusl as well. All the conditions that are the conditions of wudu, they're also the conditions of ghusl as well. Now, the difference, however, a point that had to be noted, however, was that the first two conditions are conditions in every single act of worship. And the third condition is a condition that is a condition for every act of worship that requires Taharah, that requires purification. After the author finished off with wudu, all the ahkam related to wudu and ghusl, he then went on to mention what exactly is it that breaks a person's wudu, that nullifies a person's wudu, that nullifies a person's wudu. And if a person was to have his wudu nullified, what's the significance of that? What can't he do? What can he do? And all these kind of things. And so it's very, it's the organization or the pattern that he took to organize his book is very, very, it's very understandable. And that is that you make your wudu first and then you break it. So he mentioned the wudu, ghusl, and then he mentioned the things that break the wudu. And the reason why the author didn't mention any of the sunan, because we know that the acts of wudu are more than just the 6. The hadith of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anh, where he explains all of the acts that the Prophet ﷺ did in his wudu, Uthman. So, but over here, the author didn't mention that because of the concise nature of the text. The author, he stuck to the bare minimum that a Muslim requires. Every now and then he'll mention a sunnah or another, but the point of the matter is that in general he's keeping it very, very concise. He's keeping it very, very concise. Nawaqidul wudu, faslun, section, another section now. We're still in Taharah. Nawaqidul wudu, the things, the factors that nullify a person's wudu. Arba'atu ashya, there are 4 things. Some of the authors, in other texts you'll find that the author will say 5 things and not 4 things. And that's because one of the 4 categories they divided it into 2. But either way, there are 4 things, at large. And then if you'd like to have a more expansive categorization, then you'd say 5. Al-awwal, the first of those 4 things is al-khariju, is anything that exits from either the front or the rear private parts, whether wind or anything else except semen. Okay, al-khariju min ahad as-sabilain, the thing that exits, anything that exits from one of the 2 passages. Sabilain, the 2 passages. What are the 2 passages? The rear and the front. So the author said 2 passages, and that's a loose statement, because really there's 2 passages for the man and 3 for the woman, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. So basically what it means is anything that exits from any of those passages. So the vagina or the penis for the man, any of these pass min qubulin, he said over here, from the either the front qubul, front from qabl, just so you get a closer understanding of what the derivation is here. Aw dubur, or also the rear private part. Rihun, if a person was to pass wind, that would also be something that nullifies the person's wudu. Aw ghayruhu, or anything else for that matter, be it anything, it would break a person's wudu except one thing, with the exception of semen. Semen doesn't break a person's wudu. Semen doesn't break a person's wudu. Rather, this is according to Shafi'iyya, rather it breaks a person's ghusl. So the ulama, they have a principle, as a lot of ulama mentioned it, such as Ibn al-Mulaqq in his Qawa'id, As-Suyuti and Al-Ashbah and others, that مَا أَوْجَبَ أَعْظَمَ الْأَمْرَيْنِ بِخُصُوصِهِ لَا يُوجِبُ أَدْوَانَهُمَا بِعُمُومِهِ. Whatever necessitates the greater of 2 things, it doesn't necessitate the smaller of 2 things. There's, of course, this principle is used in certain aspects of other chapters of fiqh as well, but this is a particular chapter where it's used. I don't know what's funny that I said. I just like to smile. So in this particular case, because the discharge of semen, it made wajib ghusl. The ulama, they said, because it made wajib ghusl, it would no longer make wajib wudu as well, because it was able to make obligate the discharge. It was able to obligate the greater of 2 things, okay, which is wudu or ghusl. So because of that, because of a particular attribute within it, okay, it's as you see, semen and urine, it has a similar attribute, and that's the passage, that's the discharge. But semen has a particular attribute, and that's the fact that it makes wajib ghusl, whereas urine doesn't do that. So the ulama, they say that whatever makes the greater of 2 things, whatever obligates the greater of 2 things, because of a particular aspect in its nature, it doesn't obligate the lesser of 2 things. أَدْوَانَهُمَا بِعُمُومِ, because of its generality. Now the generality over here is that it's a discharge, just like any other discharge, right? Like urine, like anything else for that matter. But the particular aspect of it is that it makes wajib ghusl, whereas nothing else that's a discharge in the body does so. Do you get it? So because of its particular, because of the fact that it made or it obligated the greater of 2 ritual impurities, because of a particular attribute of it, it does not obligate the lesser of 2 things because of its generality, and that's the fact that it is a discharge. Is that clear? طيب. So, the second of 2 things, of these 4 things, is zawal al-aql, the loss of intellect through sleep, other causes, except sleep while firmly seated on the ground. Zawal al-aql, the lossage of intellect, or the loss of intellect through sleep, binawmin, through sleep, aw ghayrihi, or anything else for that matter. If a person is to lose his intellect, then wudu is broken. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said al-aynani wika'u sahi, that the eyes are like the tie of or the knot of a bag. فَمَنْ نَامَ فَلْيَتَوَضَّأ, that whoever goes to sleep, then let him make wudu. Because when a person goes to sleep, it's almost like the knot of that bag is open. The Prophet ﷺ had a beautiful way of describing things. Instead of saying, if a person passes wind, he said it in this beautiful manner, that if that the eyes are like the knot of a bag. So if a person wants to go to sleep, then let him make wudoo again, because the knot of the bag is now opened. Now you're not sure if you've passed wind or not. So based on this, the ulama, they said sleep is what? Sleep is considered amongst the nullifiers of wudoo. But when they looked at the reason, they said the reason is because when you sleep, you don't know if you've passed wind or not. So they said that if a person loses his intellect, it's even more so. It's even more so than sleep, because sleep, it's possible, if a person is not sleeping, is lightly sleeping, then it's possible that he might notice it. Whereas a person that's lost his intellect, he wouldn't notice it at all, and he won't be able to tell you whether his wudu is broken or not. Illa nawm, except one type of nawm. Except one type of nawm. Illa nawm qa'idin, except sleep while firmly seated. قائم قاعد ممكن مقعده من الأرض. Except when a person is firmly seated on the ground. Except when a person is firmly seated on the ground. And the reason for that is the hadith where the Sahaba used to sit and wait for the salah for the Prophet ﷺ, and they would sit and wait. And the narration said حتى تخفق رؤوسهم الأرض, until their faces would go down and face towards the ground. Why? Because they would fall asleep. It said كانوا ينامون ولا يتوضؤون, they would sleep and they wouldn't make wudu. So until their faces would go and face towards the earth, and the point is over here, they would be sleeping, but they would be sleeping sitting. They'd be sleeping sitting. So we have the generality of the previous text. We were able to particularize it and limit it with the nature of this text, with the particular nature of this text, where they were sleeping, but they didn't get up to make wudu, and they prayed Isha with the Prophet ﷺ, and all of that was because they were sleeping while they were sitting. They were sleeping while they were sitting. Because when a person is sitting, it's hard to pass gas. So if you're firmly seated on the ground, the ulama, they said if you're sleeping, it's considered, it doesn't nullify the wudu. ثالث, التقاء بشرتي رجل وامرأة كبيرين أجنبيين من غير حائل. The third thing, التقاء. التقاء means to come into contact. بشرتي رجل وامرأة. The بشرتي, the two skins, as in the skin of a man and a woman. The two رجل of a man, وامرأة, the skin of a man and a woman. So if a man and a woman come into contact, the wudu breaks if they are both old enough for them to have desire for each other. Okay, ajnabiyayni, and they are not mahram. They're not mahram. So if a person wants to touch min ghayri ha'in, it also has to be without a barrier. It has to be without a barrier. So if you touch a woman like this, it doesn't break your wudu because there's a barrier, and that's the cloth. But if it's a skin-to-skin contact anywhere in the body, the ulama, they said this breaks a wudu, so long as the woman is what? Ajnabi. So long as the woman is she's not a mahram woman. Skin-to-skin contact between an adult, non-mahram, as non-marriageable, male and female without any barrier. Male and female without any barrier. And what they mean by non-mahram over here is a little bit different than the general understanding of non-mahram. Non-mahram over here means anyone that you're allowed to have desire towards. Anyone that you're allowed to have desire towards. So this includes your wife. This includes your wife. According to the Shafi'iyya. Okay, according to the Shafi'iyya, if you were to touch your wife, with or without desire, it would break your wudu. It would break your wudu. And this is based on the verse, أَوْ لَامَسْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ, or, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَوْ لَامَسْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ, or if you were to touch your woman, as in physically touch them, skin-to-skin contact, according to the Shafi'iyya, it breaks the wudu. According to the Jumhur, it breaks the wudu, but the Jumhur, besides the Shafi'iyya, they put certain conditions on it, okay? So you have the Malikiyya, the Hanabila, and the Shafi'iyya, all of them say skin-to-skin contact breaks the person's wudu. Shafi'iyya, they said it breaks it, period, without any conditions attached to it. The Hanabila, they said that it breaks a person's wudu so long as the person has desire. So if he touches his wife or or just another woman walking down the street, or in tawaf or something like that, according to the Shafi'i, it would break his wudu. According to the Hanabila, it would break his wudu if he had a desire towards this woman while he's touching her, be it his wife or otherwise. According to the Malikiya, they detail it out. They detail it out with they set 2 conditions towards it, but we don't need to get into that. According to the Hanafiya, they also have other details, but they don't say that merely touching a woman breaks your wudu. So, as I said, according to the majority of Islamic scholars, touching a woman breaks your wudu so long as... and then they have differences of opinion in terms of the details of it. Is there any conditions attached? Does a wife touching her break your wudu? Does it not? All these kind of things. So, but the essential concept is agreed upon, based on the majority. According to Hanafiya, as I said, they don't agree with that. طيب. But only the Shafi'iyya, again, just to clarify that, only the Shafi'iyya, they say it breaks the wudu period, be it a wife or besides a wife, so long as it's not a mahram. So a mother or sister, it doesnn't break your wudu if you were to touch skin to skin contact. When you say skin to skin contact, it rules out nails. It's not skin to skin contact. What else does it rule out? Hair. It also rules out hair. What else does it rule out? What else is there besides skin and hair on your body?
Eyeballs.
No, eyeballs consider skin. Teeth. So it also rules out teeth, because teeth is not skin to skin contact. And also, so it rules out. So the point of the matter is that it has to be skin to skin contact for it to break a person's wudu. Break a person's wudu. طيب. And this is, by the way, the position of some of the Sahaba as well. And they understood the worst, أَوْ لَامَسْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ, or you go and touch women. They understood that to mean some of the Sahaba. There's a difference of opinion amongst the Sahaba about this issue. Some of them said that أَوْ لَامَسْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ, it's referring to sexual intercourse. Others said no, it's referring to merely touching. So this is, something that the Sahaba have differed about. So the point is that to say that this is a weak position or something like that, it's not a fair statement, because this is also the qawl of some of the great Sahaba. الرابع, the 4th thing, مس قبل الآدمي بباطن الكف, touching the private parts of a human being with the palm or inner surface of the fingers. Okay, so مس قبل الآدمي, to touch the private part of a human being, to touch private parts of a human being, أو حلقة دبره, or either the front or the rear, ببطن الراحة, with the palm of the hand, وبطون الأصابع, and also the front part of the fingers. So what exactly is it that is if you were to touch from your hand your private part, how would it become? How would it become? When would it be considered a nullifier? You guys have the texts in front of you. If you touch your private part with one of your hands, okay, when is it considered a nullifier?
If it's with desire.
If it's with
the front part.
If it's with the palm. If it's with the palm, with or without desire, it doesn't have to be desire. It's it doesn't have to be with desire. Okay. The main thing is that it's supposed to be with the palm. If it's with the palm, it'll break your wudu. If it's over here, it doesn't break your wudu. And between the fingers, it also doesn't break your wudu. Okay. So the main thing is the palm, and all of this goes back to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said, إِذَا أَفْضَى أَحَدُكُمْ, when one of you touches, but the word the Prophet ﷺ uses إِفْضَى, أَحَدُكُمْ بِيَدِهِ إِلَى فَرْجِهِ, when one of you touches with your hand, and he used the word ifḍā, and we'll come back to that just now. لَيْسَ دُونَهُمَا, he touches a private part with doing ifḍā with his hand. Okay, لَيْسَ دُونَهُمَا حِجَابٌ, and there's no barrier between the two, between the private part and the hand. وَلَا سِتْرٌ فَقَدْ وَجَبَ عَلَيْهِ الْوُضُوء, and there's no barrier, no covering between the private part and the hand, then it becomes wajib for him to make wudu. Now, the word ifḍā, and Imam Ash-Shafi rahimahullah, he used to be a linguist, right? That's why you see he has a lot of poetry as well. And he used to say, وَلَوْلَا الشِّعْرُ بِالْعُلَمَاءِ يَزْرِي لَكُنْتُ الْيَوْمَ أَشْعَرَ مِنْ لَبِيدِ. He used to sing a lot of poetry, but at the same time he tried to avoid saying poetry, because he said if it wasn't for the fact that poetry makes the ulama look bad, as in, it's something that the position of knowledge and ilm a person should avoid doing, because there's certain things, as some of the ulama they said, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْعِلْمِ صَانُوهُ صَانَهُمْ وَلَوْ عَظَّمُوهُ فِي النُّفُوسِ لَعُظِّمَ. If the people of knowledge were to show the magnitude of knowledge within themselves, Allah وَلَوْ عَظَّمُوا لَصَانَهُم. The knowledge, the fact that they have knowledge, it would have maintained them. From what? It would have maintained them from it would have protected them from people treating them badly, because they treated this ilm in the right way. وَلَوْ عَظَّمُوهُ فِي النُّفُوسِ لَعُظِّمَ. If they show glory to it, if they show the greatness of ilm in their hearts and the way they deal with it, like some of the imam, they used to put on itar before they come for a dars ilm. Some of them, the students of knowledge, they wouldn't have, Imam Ash-Shafi wouldn't have the courage to flip a page in front of Imam Malik, out of the hayba, out of the fear that he had for Imam Malik, because of all of the, because of the way he used to treat knowledge. Because of the way he would come and make wudoo and then sit down for the majlis of hadith. He would never stand up and say hadith. He would always sit down for it. So the point is that Imam Ash-Shafi'i, he said, وَلَوْلَا الشِّعْرُ بِالْعُلَمَاءِ يَزْرِي. If it wasn't for the fact that shi'r, poetry, would be something that decreases from the status of the ulama. And this goes back to the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala scolded the shu'ara a bit. الشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ. That the shu'ara, the poets, the people that follow the poets are always the ones that are misled. So the point is that he said, if it wasn't for poetry, if it wasn't for the fact that poetry it decreases from the status of the ulama, لَكُنْتُ الْيَوْمَ أَشْعَرَ مِنْ لَبِيدِ. Today I would have been even more so of a poet than Labid, because he was excellent in language. Imam Shafi'i, he memorized all of the language, the dawaween, or the major texts of the Arabic language when he was a young man. He was not even 15 or something like that, where the ulama, they told him to go out and make fatwa. Muslim ibn Khalid al-Zinji, he told them to go out and make fatwa. So the point of the matter is that he was a very talented young man, particularly in the Arabic language. So the ulama, they used to consider the Imam al-Shafi'i, his say and his verdict in the Arabic language, and in terms of the meanings of certain words, you'd consider it what? They would consider it hujjah, they would consider it a proof for it to mean that way, because he was very strong in the Arabic language. So the word ifda in the hadith, إِذَا أَفْضَى أَحَدُكُمْ, when one of you goes and touches his private part with the hand, but the word used is ifda. So Imam Shafi'i said the word ifda in this hadith and the word ifda in the Arabic language doesn't come for anything except touching with the private part. Except touching with the private part. It only comes for touching with the private part. So if one of you touches, and the word the Prophet uses ifda, it has to be with the palm and not between the fingers, and not at the back, the back of the hand, or the back of the fingers, or any other place for that matter. So the ulama, they said, what exactly is it that a person, if he touches it, breaks your wudu? They said, if you want to find that out, then you take your two palms and put them together and press a little bit. Whatever you can see will break your wudu. Whatever you can't will not break your wudu. The other way around. Whatever you can not see will not break your wudu. Whatever you can see, will break your wudu. Whatever you cannot. Let me say that again, alright? Whatever you cannot see will break your wudu, and whatever you can see will not break your wudu. Alright? So there you go. طيب, these are the four things. Now, فصل, section, من انتقض وضوءه, whoever's wudu breaks, حرم عليه أربعة أشياء, becomes haram upon him to do four things. الصلاة, the first of those four things is prayer. The first of those four things is prayer. If you don't have wudoo, the Prophet ﷺ said in hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, لا يقبل الله صلاة أحدكم إذا أحدث حتى يتوضأ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept the prayer of any of you until when he goes through when he goes through impurity, ritual impurity, as in he breaks his wudoo, hadath, asghar, until he goes out and makes wudu again. This is in Bukhari and this is in Muslim. So this is the reason why the ulama, they said salah is not acceptable when you make wudu for it, before you make wudu for it. If you've broken your ritual impurity, minor ritual impurity. طيب. الحدث الأصغر. الحدث الأصغر. طيب. الطواف is also not acceptable if a person doesn't have wudu for it, and this is based on the majority position. This is based on the Shafi'iyya. This is based on the Malikiyya. This is based on the Malikiyya, Shafi'iyya, and the Hanabila. Yes.
So, when you're making tawaf, if you follow the opinion of the Shafi'iyya,
it's very difficult. That's why the ulama of the Shafi'iyya, they say that in tawaf particularly, it's okay to follow another opinion, because it's very, very difficult, especially in our times where we live. And back in the days, it wasn't that millions of people would come for Hajj, millions of people would come for Umrah. But nowadays, millions of people come for Hajj, and millions of people come for Umrah. So it's very, very difficult for a person to keep his wudu if he was Shafi'i, and if he was to be Shafi'i. It's very difficult to keep your wudu, because you're going to come into contact with another woman whether you like it or not. And by the way, for the skin to skin contact with the opposite gender, it breaks the wudu of both the person contacting and the one that was contacted. Whereas the woman and the man, no matter who makes the contact, it breaks wudu of both. However, in terms of touching the private part, it only breaks the wudu of the person touching, not the other way around. So this is something that needs to be known, unless it was the opposite gender. طيب. الطواف, there's a little story in terms of this, the opinion of the Shafi'iyya, which is, if I remember it correct, it's something along these lines, that a man was making tawaf, and the whole time he was wearing gloves, and the whole time he was trying to avoid touching women and stuff like this. So a woman, she knew the opinion of the Shafi'iyya, so she came and she slapped him on his forehead. She came and slapped him on his forehead. So she's like, oh Shafi'i, I got you. I got you. Anyways, but Wallahu alam, if this, some of the people, they say, oh, she was a faqihah, that's why she knew what's going on. But for me, I looked at the situation, I said, she can't be a faqihah, because if she was a faqihah, she would have known that she's not allowed to touch her anyway, touch the man anyways.
she did it to play with him.
She did it to play with him, but playing like that in haram is not permissible.
Yeah.
So the point of the matter is that, Allahu a'lam, if the story is true, if it was true, it's just mentioned as a joke. طيب, فصل, section, من انتقض وضوءه حرم عليه أربعة أشياء. Whoever انتقض, it broke, وضوءه, his wudu. Whoever's wudu breaks, حرم, it becomes haram upon him, عليه, upon him, أربعة أشياء, 4 things, okay? As-salatu, the first of those 4 things is prayer, and we already mentioned the proof for that. Al-tawafu, and the reason, as for al-tawaf, it becomes haram upon him, yes it does, and this is based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that, and actually based on several evidences, and as I said, this is the opinion of the Jumhur al-Ulama, this is the opinion of the majority of the Islamic scholars, the Malikiyya, the Shafi'iyya, and the Hanabila. As for the Hanafiyya, they say it's a condition, it's not, it's a wajib and not a condition. So it's better. And as for the position that says it's not wajib, nor is it a condition, nor nothing of that sort, then it's that's not necessarily a fair statement. That's not necessarily a fair statement. So it's safer for a person to go and make wudu. A woman that doesn't have a woman that is in her menstrual cycle, it's better for her to wait until she finishes her cycle and then go. So these kind of things.
Reciting is permissible.
We'll talk about that. Tawaf. So, and the proof for that, as I said, it's where Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anhu was with the Prophet sallallahu in Hajjat al-Wida', And the Prophet ﷺ looked at her, she was crying. He said, Habisatun-Naja, is she going to be holding us back? So the Prophet ﷺ realized that she went through her menstrual cycle, so she wasn't pure, she couldn't make wudoo. So based on that, the ulama, they said it's a condition for tawaf to have wudoo. Another reason to believe that is because of the Prophet ﷺ's statement where he said at-tawafu kas-salah, or mithlu as-salah, that tawaf is just like prayer, except إلا أن الله حل لنا فيه الكلام فمن تكلم فلا يتكلم إلا بخير. That except the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made halal for us speaking within it. So whoever speaks within it, let him speak with nothing but that which is good. As in, don't do vain talk, don't do pointless conversations during your tawaf. Do only good things, only good talk. Or maybe just do adhkar. But if you have to talk to someone, it's permissible to do so. وَمَسُّ الْمُصْحَفِ, and also to touch the mushaf. This is something that needs to be really, really noted and spread widely, because in the recent years, the opinion that is almost like the opinion of only three of the Salaf, as some of the ulama mentioned, 3 of the Salaf and no more, in the time of the Tabi'een or a little bit after them, that said otherwise. All of the ulama, they said, touching the Qur'an, the mushaf, the book of the Qur'an, it's not permissible except with wudoo. This is the opinion of the Hanafiya. This is without a difference of opinion amongst the madhahib, by the way. This is the opinion of the Hanafiya. This is the opinion of the Shafi'iyya. This is the opinion, the Malikiyya, the Shafi'iyya. This is the opinion of the Hanabila. All 4 of the schools of thought, they say what? That it is not permissible for a person to touch the Qur'an except if he or she has wudoo. Except or if he or she has wudoo. And all of that is based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, لا يمس القرآن إلا طاهر, لا يمس القرآن إلا طاهر. And also that nobody should touch the Qur'an except if he's in the state of purity. And also because of the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون, nobody should touch it except the people that have been purified. إلا المطهرون. And some of the ulama that have a different opinion about this issue, they'll say mutahharun means the ones that have been purified. Mutahharun means the ones that have been purified. Sah? Mutahharun means the ones that have been purified. So based on the fact that they've been purified, human beings haven't been purified, they go and purify themselves. So it's referring to angels. Based on that, some of the ulama that say otherwise, they say, look, this verse is not referring to human beings. So it's referring to Lawh al-Mahfuz, and it's referring to the angels. So la yamassu, as in nobody should touch it except if they're mutahharun, the ones that are purified. It equals the Lawh al-Mahfuz, the one in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. And mutahharun are the ones that have been purified, and they're the angels. So you guys, the ones that say, as in the majority of scholars, the ones that say that it's impermissible for you to touch the Qur'an except if you have wudoo, you guys are wrong, because this verse, what? This verse is proof against you and not for you, because this verse is referring to angels and it's not referring to human beings. So we say back to them that, hey, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. Over here where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says لا يمسه إلا المطهرون, that nobody should touch it except if you're mutahhar, you've been purified. Your understanding of the word mutahhar is wrong. Why? Because the ulama, they mentioned the word tahar or fa'al, anything that comes on the wazn fa'al, it can sometimes mean tafa'al, and over here it's meaning tafa'al. So it doesn't mean the ones that have been purified, it means mutatahir, as in the one who seeks to be purified, which is a human being. And la yamassuhu, it's referring to the Qur'an. How do we know that? Because the verse right after that, it says tanzilun min rabbil alamin. It's been revealed, it's the revelation of your Lord. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't reveal Lawh al-Mahfuz to us. He revealed to us the Qur'an. So based on that, the ulama, they said, and also based on this other hadith, the ulama, they said that this is referring to the mushaf particularly. And going back to لا يمس القرآن إلا طاهر, لا يمس القرآن إلا طاهر, nobody should touch it except if he's pure. The Prophet ﷺ, the ulama, they say otherwise, they say it's permissible to touch the mushaf without wudhu. They'll say this hadith, you guys misunderstood it also. Guys, you're misunderstanding a lot of things. So this hadith, you guys understood it to mean that لا يمس إلا طاهر, nobody should touch it except if he has wudhu. Rather, it means nobody should touch it except if he's pure. And all of us are pure, we're human beings. right? We're all pure. So because of the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said to one of the Sahaba who was junub, who was in the state of janaba, he said to him, a believer is always pure. So we reply back to them and say, look, if a believer was always pure, and the Prophet ﷺ was addressing the believer, because everything the Prophet ﷺ says, he says it to the believers, the believing Sahaba, then this statement of the Prophet ﷺ would be in vain, because he already knows the believers are pure. So there's no reason for the Prophet ﷺ to say to the Sahaba, "La yamassuhu illa tahir." Nobody should touch it except if he's pure. So that proves yet again that it's a matter of a person that has wudoo or not. And with that being said, we go to the وَحَمْلُهُ, and also carrying the mushaf. So if a person had something on top of it, like this for example, let's say this is the mushaf, but this is not. If a person had two books underneath each other, and they were on an edge, so you wanted to carry it like this, the ulama, they said it's also impermissible if a person intends the mushaf. If a person intends the mushaf. However, if he has the intention of them collectively, then it's fine. Or if a person has it in his bag. A person has it in his bag, the Qur'an or something like that. In that case, the person is not intending the Qur'an, rather he's intending the bag. So the Qur'an is just coming along with that. The ulama, they said that's also permissible, it's fine. So in the only situation where carrying the mushaf would be impermissible is where you have a whole bunch of aghrad, a whole bunch of things sitting around you, and you want to carry all of them at once, and you're intending to carry the mushaf, not all of them. You understand? So, however, if you intend to carry all of them, or you intend to carry the bag and the mushaf just comes along with it, in that case, the ulama, they said it's permissible because you're not intending to carry the mushaf. وَيَحْرُمُ عَلَى الْجُنُوبِ, and it is impermissible for the junub. It is impermissible for the junub. It is impermissible for the person that is in the major state of ritual impurity. How did you translate it here? Or ritual impurity. But the forbidden actions for a person in the state of major impurity, in need of ritual bath. Okay, the haram things are 6. So we have the same 4 that we mentioned previously, and all the proofs are the same for that, because the minor state of ritual impurity, al-hadath al-asghar, is weaker than the major state. So all the proofs and all the evidences we use for the minor state, they also go for the major state. So now with the major state, however, there's an addition of 2 things, which is, first of all, we have salah, just like the previous one, tawaf, just like the previous one, masul mushaf, touching the mushaf, just like the previous one, hamluhu, and also carrying the mushaf, just like the previous one. And now we have an addition, which is al-lubthu fil masjid, which is to remain within the masjid, So it's impermissible for a man that is in the state of major ritual impurity to remain in the masjid, except in certain situations. If a person was making, and this happened to me before, personally, if a person was making tawaf, if a person was making, if a person was making i'tikaf in the masjid, and they lock all the doors and you need to go take a shower, you're stuck now. You're in the masjid and you're in the state of major ritual impurity. You're in the masjid and you're in the state of major ritual impurity. So so based on that, it's not permissible. Except in one situation, the situation that we just mentioned, where you're locked in the masjid now. What can you do? Miskeen. You have to go to take a shower, but you're locked in the masjid. So khalas, in this situation, the ulama, they mention that it's forgiven. وَقِرَاءَةُ الْقُرْآنِ, also reading the Qur'an, and this is based on the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that a person that's in the state of janaba, and also the major state of ritual impurity, and also the state of the woman that's going through her menstrual cycle, right? Both of them are not allowed to read the Qur'an. Read the Qur'an out loud. However, read the Qur'an out loud with the intention of reading the Qur'an. Read the Qur'an out loud with the intention of what? With the intention of reading the Qur'an. So keep that in mind, huh? Read the Qur'an out loud with the intention of reading the Qur'an. However, if a person does not intend to read the Qur'an, then what? If a person does not intend to read the Qur'an, rather he's saying, the adhkar of his daily adhkar. So what happens then? Is it permissible, impermissible, or what?
Permissible.
Huh?
You're talking about it's just like Rabbana.
مثلا.
Yes.
For example, yeah.
Yeah, then would be.
Huh?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So in that case, a woman or a menstruating woman, and also a man that is or man or a woman that are in the state of major ritual impurity, or hadath al-akbar, they can read the Quran with the intention of doing something besides reading the Quran. Like, not what I mean to say is they shouldn't use this as a leeway or something to go and read the Quran. But the point is that if the person is making a daily adhkar, now it's hard for you to say to a woman that's in her cycle for weeks or a week. It's hard for you to say to her, okay, don't read your adhkar. She needs to protect herself from the evils of the shayateen and these kind of things. So she goes and reads her adhkar. She can read Ayat al-Kursi, she can read all these things. They're from the Quran. But with the intention of what? With the intention of reading the adhkar and not the Quran. With the intention of reading the adhkar and not the Quran, yes.
What if a man, he always reads or moves before he goes to sleep, and then he just happens to have relations with his wife, and then
in this case you have to go make wudoo. You have to go make ghusl, because now this is intended. The recitation of the Quran is intended over here.
So like the reciting Surah before you go to sleep.
Yeah, you have to go make ghusl. Yeah. طيب.
And is this only applying to out loud recitation, or?
Yeah, this is also something to know. This is only applying to recitation out loud. However, if you don't read it out loud, rather you just so that you can't hear yourself, you read it either in your heart or you read it on your tongue, but you don't recite it out loud to an extent that you can hear yourself. You just keep the voice. You don't even have a voice. You can just recite in your heart or something like that. The ulama, they said also it's permissible for a man and a man or a woman that are in the state of ritual impurity, major ritual impurity, and a woman that is in a state of hayd. Okay? طيب. So these are the 6 things. Now, all of those 6 things and more for the woman that is in a state of hayd or nifas, the woman that is in a state of that is in her cycle, in her period. As-salah, just like the previous one. Tawaf, just like the previous 2. Massul mushaf, also touching the mushaf, just like the previous 2. Muhamluhu, and also to carry the mushaf, just like the previous 2. Al-lubthu fil masjid, also to remain within the masjid, just like the previous ones. Wa qira'atul Quran, to recite the Quran. Now this is this is like the previous, the last one, the number 5, which is al-lubthu fil masjid, to remain in the masjid. This is just like the previous one, not like the previous 2. Qira'atul Quran, and reciting the Quran is like also the previous one, not the previous 2. As-sawm, now these are the additions. You have fasting. Also, a woman is not allowed to fast. And this is based on the hadith of the woman that came to Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and she said, ma bal al-haid, why is it that the haid taqdi as-siyam wa la taqdi as-salat? Why is it that when a haid, or the menstruating woman, goes to her cycle, why is it that she has to go and make her salah up, make her sawm up, and not her salah? So Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha replied, كنا نؤمر بقضاء الصوم ولا نؤمر بقضاء الصلاة. We used to be told to make up our fasts and not our prayers. So that proves that they wouldn't be fasting. They wouldn't be fasting during their cycles, because they were told to make up their fast, as in their fasts are not acceptable and they're not fasting. So the point is that this is another thing that a woman has to do. She has to avoid fasting during these few days. Talaq, and there's other evidences for it as well. Also talaq, it's haram for a man to give her talaq. It's haram for a man to give talaq to a woman that is going through her cycle. But however, if a man wants to give talaq, it's considered. It's haram, but it's considered. You get it? It's not permissible for a man to make talaq to his wife during these few days. However, it is considered a talaq. It's considered a
particular?
They call it, it's considered a divorce, a real divorce. They call it talaq bid'i. It's considered a talaq bid'i. This is just the way they say it. It's a haram talaq, basically. However, the talaq in and of itself is considered. So, if a man was to say, to his wife, I have divorced you, or talaqtuki, or something like that, during her hayd, during her menstrual cycle, the wife would be considered mutallaqa. She'd be considered divorced. She would be considered divorced. But for the man that's making that talaq, it would be what? It would be impermissible for him to do so. This is the position of the Hanafiya, the Malikiyya, the Shafi'iyya, and the Hanabila. Almost the consensus of the Islamic scholars. However, a very small number of ulama over the centuries said otherwise. So this is something that needs to be noted, that a person doesn't play around with this stuff. That a person doesn't play around with it. Now, some of our teachers, they used to say, talaq is a word for a man that shouldn't be in his vocabulary. That shouldn't be in his vocabulary. You shouldn't have it. Because some people are very lenient with this word talaq. Anything comes up okay, khalas, I'm thinking about this. So you shouldn't even have it in your vocabulary. If you have a dictionary that you wrote for yourself, delete that word. Delete that word. Because it's so difficult, and the outcomes that come out of it are so difficult that a person just doesn't realize when he's mad what's going on. He just doesn't realize when he's mad what's going to happen. And also it shows the weakness of the man. Because the man is the man. The man is the qawwam. الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. They're asked and they're responsible of the woman. Now the fact that a person is now considering talaq, what's happening is he's showing his weakness by running from responsibility. Running from responsibility. Because he's responsible. She's making a problem. You're there to solve the problem. You're there to solve the problem. Allah has given you means to solve the problem. But talaq is not something that a person should be considering, except in situations where there's no other way to go. طيب. And also, طيب. وَالْمُرُورُ فِي الْمَسْجِدِ. And also, to walk across the masjid. So for the junub, he's allowed to walk across the masjid, but he's not allowed to stay in the masjid. For a woman that is a ha'id, that is going through her cycle, she's not even allowed to cross the masjid. She's not allowed to pass the masjid. She's not allowed to walk across the masjid. She's not allowed to walk across the masjid. In khafat talwithahu, if she's afraid that she will make the masjid filthy. If she's afraid that she will make the masjid filthy. In that situation, she's not allowed to walk across the masjid. However, if she's not afraid that she's going to be making the masjid filthy, then it's permissible for her to walk across the masjid. For example, if a woman is wearing pads or something like that, and there's no bleeding, heavy bleeding at that point or something, and she wants to just cross the masjid, the ulama, they said it's permissible for her to do so. It's better, if there's another way to do it, then let her do that. وَالِاسْتِمْتَاعُ بِمَا بَيْنَ السُّرَّةِ وَالرُّكْبَةِ. Also to take sexual pleasure from what is between the navel and the knee. So for the man, it's not permissible for him to have sexual pleasure with his wife from anywhere between the navel to the knee. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, لَكَ مَا فَوْقَ الْإِزَارِ, to Abdullah ibn Sa'd, where he said, مَا يَحِلُّ لِي مِنْ امْرَأَتِي وَهِيَ حَائِض. What is it that is permissible for me to do with my wife when she is in her cycle? So when she's in her cycle, the Prophet ﷺ, he replied back, he said, لَكَ مَا فَوْقَ الْإِزَارِ. For you is everything that is above the izar, the cloth that you tie around your bottom. طيب.